Those of you who are in your classroom, on your phones, as an example, while the lesson is happening, you know, when this year passes, when this year is over, you who have been disruptive in the class, okay? At the end of this year, you are going to be out of the classroom. So me as a teacher, it doesn't bother me because you're going to be out anyway.
Right.
All we have to do is tolerate you until the end of the year and you'll be gone.
Yes. Oh man, I have to rewind that. Let's see if we can rewind that. Right.
You who have been disruptive in the class, okay? At the end of this year, you are going to be out of the classroom.
Right.
So me as a teacher, it doesn't bother me because you're going to be out anyway.
Right.
All we have to do is tolerate you until the end of the year.
Why would it bother the teacher? Is the question. Why would it bother the teacher to ensure that the student who's being disruptive in class is no longer disruptive? Why would it bother the teacher? Why would it bother the teacher to ensure that the student who's basically getting the minimum pass mark requirements or even less basically gets higher marks like the 70% distinction, 60%, so that they can choose a better career for themselves? Is there better performance for the teachers, right? Are the policies that are being put in place, who's implementing them, ensuring that they are being implemented, these so-called policies? What are the repercussions, right? I think as a parent, if you have a child in school, going to school, tertiary, high school, primary, whatever the case may be, I think that is a very essential question to ask. What is the burn-up performance on the teachers, right? Now, I know that is like a heavy load on the teachers. If you're a teacher, I apologize, right? I know that's a heavy load, right? But is there burn-up performance on the teachers, I think is the question. A good question to ask. I mean, there's a lot of students basically aiming for that 30% pass mark. There's a lot of them, right? If I could just pass and make sure that I basically get out of school. I'm tired of this whole thing. My parents just want me to pass and whoop, I'll be good. I'll go to college. I'll probably trade forex, whatever the case may be, and that's it. That's what a lot of people are focusing on because of those low pass marks. In fact, on one of the previous videos, I basically quoted one of Musi Maimane's posts, right? The political party leader, right? He mentioned that 40% of students drop out before reaching grade 12. 40%, they drop out before reaching grade 12. If that is the case, is it possible? Now, I'm just thinking out loud here, right? Just follow me for a second. Is it possible that the 30% pass mark was put together to ensure that there's less dropout? Right? If you think about it, I think that could be a possible reason why the 30% pass mark exists. Because if you think about it, if you think of your child or any student for that matter, who would probably fail on some of the subjects, probably fail some of the grades, and they get to a point where they are 2 or 3 or 4 grades below what they're supposed to be, right? They might end up dropping out. There's a high chance that they might end up dropping out. So to avoid the idea of being laughed at, and they can actually move on to the next grade just by getting a mere 30%, they can actually feel more comfortable ensuring that they actually, move on to the next grade, right? They'll be more comfortable. Is it possible that's the reason why the 30% pass mark exists? That's for you to think about, right? Let me know what you think on the comment sections. I think this guy, Dr. Paul Charles, I think is his name, Dr. Paul Charles. I think he's spitting some facts here. Let's have a look.
A 30% pass mark was determined not because it was good for the student. A 30% pass mark was decided upon not because it is good for you. It is not good for anyone. But you know why it was decided that 30% should be the minimum mark?
To get us out.
Put it here.
Not me.
Yeah.
That 30% pass mark, you are right, was decided upon to get you out of the system. You get that? Yes? So the school actually is operating like a factory line. People are coming in, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, everyone metric, gone out. Next batch, gone out. Next batch, gone out. So you, who have a very bad mark in metric, right? Okay? You have a very bad mark in metric, but you passed. You got 30%, you met the minimum requirement. Are you the school's problem now? You are not the school's problem. Now you have to live your own life with that 30%. And with that 30%, guys.
This is a very interesting thought that I have here. Hopefully I can lay it out properly so that you guys can understand. The question would be, what great problem exists that the education system or even the government would say, we just need to get these people through the school system, not necessarily get them to a point where they're able to get the jobs that we need them to get, not necessarily get them to a point where they're able to get the jobs that we need them to get, but we need them to go through the process. So is the education system there to ensure that they have better futures, or is there an underlying motive behind the system, or underlying motive behind the student going through the system? Right now, I know what I want to say, right? It's just that I cannot say it on YouTube, right? But is there an underlying motive to ensure that kids or students go through the school system? A motive that goes beyond them just getting a career that will help them build the life that they want for themselves. Is there something that the education system is giving our kids or molding our kids to become that we have no idea about, that is beneficial to them, that is beneficial to the elite, is the question. I think that is a very serious question right there. And some of the people are going to dislike this video because they cannot comprehend what I'm trying to say here, right? And I cannot say it on YouTube. Is there an underlying motive, is the question. I think Dr. Paul Charles is mentioning some serious points here. Let's have a look.
You can't do anything with that 30%.
Yes.
Let me tell you, you can't do anything, no nothing with that 30%. So even if you end up doing nothing with your life, absolutely nothing with that 30%, this school building here will still exist. And you'll get a new group of students coming here. This 30% is not designed for your success. This 30% is not designed for your happiness.
I think, look, if you're a parent, or if you're an uncle or an aunt, whatever the case may be, look, take this video and forward it to somebody. Take this video and forward it to somebody. Get the child to comprehend that after they reach 18 years old, they are not the school's problem anymore. And after they reach 21, 22, 23, 24, they're no longer the parents' problem anymore. Because once they get to those levels, 18, 21, 24, 25, 26, and they still have the mentality that, hey, I am somebody else's problem, it's going to be a problem for them in future. It's going to be a problem for them to stand up on their own. Right? This is a great point that this guy is mentioning here.
This 30% is not designed for your future. This 30% is just designed to get you out as quick as possible, to make space for the next group of students.
Yes, please.
That is why we don't recommend striving for that 30%. This is what we recommend, guys. And I'm going to explain why we are saying that. Okay? We believe that every student, and I mean this, when I say every student, I mean you, okay? I mean you. Every student should strive and aim for an A. Because aiming for an A and landing on a B is better than it's better than aiming for a B and landing on a C, even though a C is better than a D. Now here's the thing.
I think I want to meet this guy. I would really like to, ask some questions about what he thinks about education, not only the high school, primary sections, but also like the tertiary institutions and stuff. I would really like to sit down with him and basically ask some questions. He is very passionate, I would say, about young individuals and education. And yeah, I think I would really like to talk to him. Just sit down, have a proper conversation. I think I would learn a lot. I think I would learn a lot, and not only for me, but also for parents out there. Right? I think he has a different mindset in terms of how a student can go through the system. Right? Because he's mentioning here that he's mentioning this quote now, that I think that is something that you can, feed your child as a saying, to say that, what, have this in mind all the time when you basically prepare for examinations, right? So I think that is a great point that he's mentioning there. I'd like to sit down with him. I don't know if I could get a hold of him. Let's have a look.
Here's the thing. You know why we advocate this? Here's the interesting part. You see, when you aim for an A, and you miss the mark, you miss the A, you will fall to a B or something lower, just but around there, okay? You will fall to a B or to a C. But if you aim for 30% and you fall from there, what do you fall to? You can only fall from if you are aiming for an A, you can only fall from that A to a B or a B to a C, right? Yeah. But if you are aiming for a 30%, you don't fall, you fail.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay?
Yeah.
So, let me tell you.
Okay. I don't know if you heard that. There's some kids on the background who basically disagree. Just let me rewind a little bit and you tell me what you think those kids are moaning about, right? Are they, having their own conversations? Or are they disagreeing with Dr. Paul Charles here? Or are they agreeing, whatever the case may be? Let me just rewind a little bit here.
To a B or a B to a C, right? Yeah. But if you are aiming for a 30%, you don't fall, you fail.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay?
Yeah.
So
it's like boys or something, making some sounds there. What do you think? Do you think they agree? What do you think is the mindset behind that? Am I the only one who's hearing that? Let me just rewind that again.
You don't fall, you fail.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay? So let me tell you, if your goal is to pass metric.
Yeah. Like I'm leaning towards there's some kids to his right hand side that disagree with what he just said. And I would really like to know what type of household they come from, what type of friends do they have, whatever the case may be. Right? Your child, chances are, is hanging around those type of people. And you're going to try and convince him that education really, really, really is essential. There's a lot of content that your child is consuming that would debunk every argument that you have about education. Why? Because they're always on phones. There's content upon content trying to prove to your child that education is not really the way to go. There's content, and you're going to come there with some argument to say that education is important because it worked for you. You may say it worked for you, but their desires and goals makes them aim for something that is completely different from what you have accomplished, right? So they want a Ferrari, right? They know that a teacher's salary is not going to give them the Ferrari that they hope for. They want a Ferrari. They know that a mechanic's salary is not going to give them the salary, the Ferrari that they hope for, right? So obviously there's some arguments that you as a parent are going to mention to your child, and they're going to be able to debunk it because they're consuming content and they have friends that always have arguments against the things that you mention, right? Maybe I'm overthinking this. Let me know in the comment section. What do you think that moaning was about on the background, right? On towards his right hand side, because he looked towards his right hand side, right?
With a 30%, you will be struggling in your life for the rest of your life. So you need to do what you need to do in order to aim for a higher grade. Okay? So here's the thing. Let me tell you. Some of you will say, oh, but you know, my parents are like this, that is why it's so hard for me to do so well. Some of you will say, oh, but we don't even have food to eat. How are we going to have time to study? Some of you will say, oh, but I'm so poor. I don't have the privileges of others. Some of you will have so many reasons why we cannot do better. But you know what? When you finish matric, nobody cares whether you have food to eat. Nobody cares whether your parents are alcoholics or addicts or bad people. Nobody cares whether you are poor. You will be suffering alone. The onus to improve the future for you is only in your hands.
All right, I want you. The guy that just spoke right now, he said, "Akafundanga kodwa uyenze into efana kanje," something like that, right? Don't judge me on my Zulu or Xhosa, right? Right. So what that translates to basically means that this kid has not went to school. Basically, he's not educated, but he makes something of this nature, right? And that is a great point that I wanna basically point out right here. Look at what he did there. This is basically a TLB, right? An earth moving equipment or construction machine, right? He basically built that out of plastic, right? He's got a remote control there, and basically this whole thing is functional, right? Didn't go to school, right? Didn't go to school, but he's building something of this nature. If he did not get this skill from high school, if he did not get this skill and ability to do something of this nature in tertiary or primary, whatever the case may be, where did he get such information? He got it in social media. He got it in the internet, right? And that puts a question that anybody can basically ask themselves. If you as a parent or a guardian were to be a little bit more hands-on when it comes to the content that your child watches, right? Imagine what you could have accomplished by the time your child reaches 18 years old. If you could be a little bit more hands-on about the type of information that they conceive or basically get or hear or listen to, right? What type of information or what type of achievements could your child basically do? I think this is a very important point to basically help you kind of think about. There's a lot of people right now who are riding BMX bikes, you know, those small bikes, BMX bikes, and they're doing it for Red Bull, Monster, and all these companies, and they're making millions, and they're making millions because they're doing something. They did something, man, that is a little bit out of the ordinary, and they have careers on that. There are a lot of kids who are fighting now, professional fighters who never really went to school, professional fighters, right, who are doing well in life and making millions. So I'm posing this. I'm basically posting this to you to kind of help you think about it. Is there something that your child can do now that if you were to be a little bit more hands-on and help him through the process, that by the time they're 18, 20, 21, 22 years old, they're so proficient at it, they're so good at it that they can do it as a career? Is it possible? Right. My name is Colin Slaule, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Signing out.